Welcome to another insightful episode of Me and My Health Up. The purpose of this podcast is to enhance and enlighten the well-being of others. I'm your host, Anthony Harcher. I'm a clinical nutritionist and lifestyle medicine specialist. This episode is centered on reducing anxiety and stress using the emotional freedom technique, EFT, with Fay Chan. How are you, Fay?
I'm well. And yourself?
Fantastic.
That's good.
Fay is a mindset and wellbeing coach. She specialises in EFT tapping. She helps women with emotional stresses to find their calm, clarity, and confidence amongst the chaos of life. So important these days, and I certainly come across many women that could do with your services. And EFT is something that I've come across probably through Jane Slack-Smith and the Property Success Club.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was the her I guess conversation she had with you for her members during COVID. That I connected with, I guess, your technique, and then I've done a bit of my own research and looked into it, and discovered there's lots of emerging positive evidence in favour of EFT.
Yeah.
So, Frey, it's probably good if you could give the listeners some background, further background around you and how you've arrived at doing what you're doing today. I would love to hear more about you.
Okay, cool. So, hi everyone, I'm Fay. And so I've been a tapping practitioner for 2 years now. However, the conversation around personal development, I've been immersed in since 2004. And in fact, I've worked in the personal development and transformational education industry before. I've been a money budgeting coach. So the conversations around money and mindset is very normal and occurs quite normally for me. And yeah, so how I became, I've known about EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, for over a decade, right? Because where I worked in a transformational development company, there were lots of different types of people in that conversation domain that were really quite open-minded, aware, wanting to take themselves to the next level. And there was when I met my trainer, right? And we were just friends, and I was a tapping customer, right? However, so time went on, and I've done some other jobs and stuff like that, and I became a household budgeting coach, right, for people's personal household money, finding black holes, plugging them up, right? I mean, because the foundation of which is really important, and that's where, if your foundation is solid, that's where you can grow your wealth. But I concentrated on a foundation, and I worked with other people about the wealth creation, right? Other professionals, I meant. However, inside the money mindset conversation, I had a lot of clients that would say to me, Fay, I'd rather be naked in front of you than to show you my numbers. Right? Because they were so petrified and completely gripped by what they make their bank accounts mean, or what they make their savings mean, or lack of surplus, what they make responsibility mean in terms of what they actually spend their money on, right? So when I actually do an audit on people's money and finances, they were petrified because they really then needed to cough up what was working and wasn't working about their actual budget, that they can't hide away with credit cards, yada, yada, right? However, so as much as that service was needed and wanted, even now by anyone and everyone will pay lip service to it, but everyone will be so, what's the word, paralyzed in doing anything about it, right? And it was a real frustration for me to try and get a lot of clients up, because I'm not one that just throws out courses and goes, do these 6 modules and you'll get an awareness and insight about your money. It's like, no, I actually want to transform your money issues, and it means physically going through your accounts. And that was too scary for people. And so I changed the tact from the strategic pipeline to the emotional pipeline, because therefore emotional freedom technique. So the conversation about EFT comes in there in terms of helping people unblock their stories. And this is in any area of your life: emotional eating, your blocks to money, your blocks to relationships, your blocks to the relationship you have with your children, your anger, your past, etc. So it's every myriad parts of your life. And so when I did the EFT tapping technique courses, I just loved it. Like, it was just my vehicle to which I can express myself, utilize all of my background and history since 2004 in the personal development space. And I've had spiritual training on top of that and everything else, and really be able to carry forth the conversation and impact another life through using EFT as the vehicle for me to do that. So, and that's just really opened up, especially during the year 2020, because, you know, of all the extraordinary circumstances that's happening this year, and the year's not over yet, a lot of people have been triggered. You know, they go along their life being really busy and being busy with being busy. And so they're not really aware of what's really going on. And what COVID's done and lockdown's done is that all of a sudden you need to be with yourself. It's literally like what my client said: I'd rather be standing naked in front of you than to deal with my numbers, right? COVID's brought that right up. And they needed to deal with themselves and deal with their numbers and deal with all the triggers that come along with that. And the symptoms carry out in how they express themselves, how they feel within themselves. If it's emotional eating, you know, they're not hungry, or that, but you know, the next chocolate keeps going in, or the next wine just keeps pouring, or you know, they'll reach for the potato chips and they don't know why, and it's uncontrollable because it takes them over, not the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been really quite interesting in terms of tapping with people, what comes up underneath all that for them.
Yeah, I just really connected with what you said, because it's very aligned and runs like what I do with my clients, in a sense, working with the foundations of health, and then bringing in the experts to, you know, provide that layered support, such as, you know, EFT for, you know, like, so I'm working with those, building those strong foundations like you were with money, and then bringing in the experts that can provide that layer of expertise. But unless you have those strong foundations, you need them. They're the cornerstones of success, and then you can.
Correct.
Yeah. And EFTs, that, you know, that little gem of a technique that can be, you know, once trained, you know, self-applied, you know, and you know, and applied when needed. And then, you know, as you said, it really helps that individual, like, I guess, be comfortable with who they are, and you know, and it unblocks, you know, things that are stopping them from going forward. And yeah, so it helps with that unraveling of bad habits, like you mentioned with you know, that.
Well, what I've really found interesting is with people that I've been, the thing is, they'll come to me and go, Faye, I can't stop eating lollies and I don't know why, or I can't stop eating sweet potato. No, it's specific. It's sweet chili potato chips, right? And I don't know why. It's always specific. Like, lollies could be, oh no, if I have a bag of mixed lollies, I'll go for the jelly snakes. I'm like, great, let's tap on the jelly snakes. And I'll use the jelly snake, I'll use the potato chip in front of them. And then we're tapping like this over the screen. I'm like, go get your chips, bring it in front of you, and I want you to be triggered, right? And we'll start tapping, and I'll go, where do you feel this in your body? I'm like, oh, they're like, I feel this in my stomach. I'm like, can you taste it right now? Just by looking at it, they're like, yes, I can taste it. And I'm like, can you smell it? They're like, I can smell it too. So all your senses are heightened, and your brain's creating that just by looking at that packet, right? And so we use all of that to trigger, because the emotion is created in your body from that thought, all right? And we want to see where that thought comes from. Okay, and usually it's given by a memory or a sourceful event that sort of solidified it. You know, a client tapped with me on some chips, right? And what solidified it for her was she associated happiness and joyfulness and community with sweet potato chili, the sweet chili chips, because that's what happened with her in terms of at uni. She was living in shared housing, and they just sit together studying for exams with chips. Okay, and so for her, she collapsed the happy meaning to the chips together. And so COVID happens, and what do you want to, and your system's like, I'm so stressed out, the kids are at home, yada, yada, I can't go out, what do I reach for? And then your brain will go, well, I was happier when I had sweet potato chips. Bang, sweet potato chips. You buy them, you eat them. And so we went in and unhooked it, right? So sweet potato chips are just sweet potato chips, right? And happiness is this happiness. Joyfulness is this joyfulness, not the two collapsed. And so when you unhook it, and that's when you get freedom from it, therefore emotional freedom technique, right? And it's inside that freedom that then you look at some chips or you test it, like walking down the aisle at Coles or Woolies, and you go, which chips do I want? And you want to see whether you're triggered. Or you look at that and you go, I don't know, this is so strange. How come I don't know? I used to reach for those, but I'm not drawn to it anymore. And that's the test. The test that the unhooking has been successful, right? Now, the next layer though, that's not the end of it. The next layer is, then what are you trying to eat down, right? What's the chocolate trying to hide? Or what's the chips trying to hide? Or what's the burger trying to hide? And then when you're slowly discerning it, insights come up over the next week, and we tap on what's coming up again. Because if you don't take care of the source, as in the emotion that you're trying to eat down, the anxiety that you're literally trying to swallow, right, then it'll just manifest in some other way, or manifest in baking, right, or manifest in something else. And so you need to have follow-up sessions to go, all right, what's the next layer and what's the next layer? Because the revealing source might take a few sessions to get to. But the thing is, it's a real revelation. When you finally put two and two together, you're like, oh, your life just occurs like a domino, like dominoes falling, ding, 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 ding. You're like, oh, no wonder I did this then and did that then. And you know, when I went through that stressful situation, I put on 5 kilograms, right? And everybody goes, oh yeah, that's what I do, I stress eat. But then that's just paying lip service to like affirmations, right? It doesn't work. You really have to see the belief that's driving it inside, because it's the disbelief really that's got you hooked, and it takes over your systems and you don't have any control over it. And so you might be disciplined, and you might have an accountability structure, you might have a PT or whatever coach, and they hold you accountable. But as soon as that stops, right, that's it. Right? So I used to work for a financial company that took care of people's budgets, like actually their household budgets, right? You can probably guess which company in Australia it is. They're based in South Australia. And they would leave us as clients, right? And then all of a sudden accumulate $15,000 worth of personal debt, and they'll come back and they'll go, no, please put me back into the system. Because the structure and accountability, as soon as it was gone, right, your own discipline and willpower is not reliable. Not to say you can't develop it, but it will take a lot of time, a lot of commitment to make sure that that becomes habit. And for a lot of people, like the threshold of normality in your brain or in your body is at an unworkable level. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So it's that real, there's an old habit there that is triggered by, you know, stimulus in the environment, or, you know, could be within in terms of thoughts.
Yes.
Or and that could be aroused through any, you know, it could be conversations or seeing certain people, or, you know, it's aroused through the senses. It has a strong emotional connection associated with it. brings up past experiences, and then they've got a connection that is, I guess, their band-aid solution, which is the binge eating of the substance that really helps dumb it down, or pacify.
Yes, at least there's good food at Christmas gatherings. At least there's Christmas good food, right?
And so what you do is initially provide some symptomatic relief, in a sense that they're less triggered by it. At the same time, in parallel, working with finding that root cause, so then you can slowly break down that strong connection and association. And so I like the approach, because it's very similar to what we apply in naturopathic medicine, or nutritional medicine, is that you provide some symptomatic relief, help the person, help them lessen the symptoms, make them feel a bit better, and then at the same time you're working with them to get to that underlying root cause, and helping resolve that issue long term. As you said, if you don't get to that underlying root cause, then those habits come back, because there could be a strong trigger, such as COVID hits, and then you go back to your old vices. So, unless you've developed some strong healthy habits overriding those bad habits, then you'll always go back to that habit that's worked for you, that maybe not so beneficial. So the big question I have, and for the listeners, is they're probably thinking, what the hell is EFT, or this tapping solution? Or so, give us some background as to, how it's the origin of it, and then how would you apply it to, say, someone that experiences binge eating? Because it's something that I certainly come across a lot in practice, is that, and particularly I think COVID's just elevated and heightened this binge eating, and certainly the rise of Netflix has contributed.
Gosh, yes, I know. Well, EFT, as we said before, it stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it uses acupressure, Eastern acupressure meridian points, right? So Chinese acupressure, and Western psychology to really alleviate the stress and anxiety felt within you. So as much as we point to this and call it a pen, you can't point to anger, depression, anxiety, frustration, but you do feel it in your body, right? So what tapping does is it rewires the brain, and it bypasses the amygdala and calms the signals down, right? So that's the firing off. Like when you're triggered, that's the amygdala going, eat. Right? This is how you stay safe. Eat, right? And so it allows your body, which is where you feel the anxiety, the emotion, right, and the brain, to release those limiting beliefs. And so when you're tapping, and you're tapping on meridian points, you're using your fingertips to pulse on those points, it's working the same way as the needles are on those points. But the reason we couple that with language is the psychological aspect. It's because it's the languaging, or like the specific term, like, I love that Cadbury purple, I would never get a bad block of Cadbury. Whatever the beliefs are will trigger, right? And those are beliefs, like that's actually a statement from a client when we're tapping on Cadbury. She goes, I'll never get a bad block of Cadbury. It's consistent. I know exactly what I can get. I can rely on Cadbury. Cadbury loves me, and I love Cadbury, right? And to some people, they'll start crying and releasing that because they really get it. For them, they really put those emotions in chocolate. And so that's why they reach for chocolate in times of stress and anxiety and depression, right? So EFT, as we know it now in modern times, was developed by someone called Gary Craig. That was back in the 70s, right? And it's got if you trace it back even further, it's got its roots in some kinesiology as well. But then in kinesiology, you have to muscle test for tapping points. And Gary Craig said, we want this to be accessible to everyone. So what he did was he developed this algorithm of tapping points that takes care of your major organs around your body, because really that's where a lot of the emotions turn up in. And as you're tapping anyway, you're actually accessing your meridian points, and it doesn't matter whether it's your left or right, we're symmetrical on both sides. And so as you're tapping along, it takes care of all your energy, the chi or the life force that's locked in certain places, to unblock it. Now, how people can use it in terms of binge eating is what's great about tapping is that it takes care of the charge, the immediate charge, right? So you might be walking down Coles and that Cadbury chocolate, literally Cadbury probably bought the whole lot, right? Purple, right down, left and right. And your brain's just going, purple, purple, purple. I love that purple. I'll always get the consistent bar of chocolate. Chocolate loves me and I love chocolate, right? And you're trying to fight. Your willpower's trying to fight those voices. It's like, that's too hard. What you do is just tap on your karate chop point. This is what we call your karate chop point. And first of all, it'd be good if you removed yourself from the aisle. I will move it, right? Because depending on how anchored that issue is, right? If you think about chocolate, you go, oh, it's a 10 out of 10 chocolate. That's on sale. That's on special. I can buy 3 bars of each. Right? And 3 bars go into your trolley. You walk away and you just tap. You go, I really want that chocolate. I really want that chocolate. I love my Cadbury chocolate. And literally just say what comes to your mind about chocolate, right? And then you might go, this is a 10 out of 10. Get out of my way. If I was at home right now, I'll eat that whole bar. Versus you tap for about a minute and you go, hang on, let me go back and look at that chocolate. And that might come down to a 5, which is then a lot more manageable than a 10 out of 10. Right? Like 10 out of 10, get out of my way, let me put that into my mouth. 5 out of 10 would be, I can consider putting one little square in my mouth, but not the whole row. That's a 5 out of 10, let's just say. Okay? And so that's manageable. When you tap by yourself, you can bring it down to a manageable level, which is great, right? Now, if you want to get an insight into the source of it, I think unless you're very trained and aware for yourself, and this is someone who's been in training, development and transformational education since 2004, I still tap with a tapping practitioner because I can't see my own trees from let alone the forest. When you're in it, it's too irrational to rationalize it, especially from your brain. Like you're asking your subconscious, oh, don't worry, I'm safe right now, not believing it. You can tell me the source memory and how come I'm so screwed up about chocolate, right? Your brain ain't going to do that. So it's best to, if you want to shift something that's really quite anchored, that's an unworkable pattern for you for a very long time, decades, right? It's like you've got a PhD in eating chocolate and all of a sudden you've acquired some taste certificate, let's just say. Like the PhD is going to win. Oh, and 3 decades of PhD, you might have 3 PhDs over your taste certificate. Who's going to win? Your PhDs are. So that's when you need to tap with a tapping practitioner to really remove and go in and unplug that particular thing that came into your brain, that, you know, installed in your brain when you're 5 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah. I can really see the benefit, and then, you know, and understand the rationale as to how it works. You know, as you said, you know, we have this trigger, you know, amygdala's heightened. It's our, you know, fear center. Then it sends that fear response to the body. Oh, you know, there's danger, you need to get out. And then all the blood and the, you know, the chi, the energy is going to these vital organs. And, you know, those acupressure points that you're tapping on, you know, the meridians, as you said, is, you know, releasing and allowing the flow of the chi, the energy, you know, away from those vital organs, and telling the body that, hey, it's not a threat to you. It's just, you know, it is what it is. It's just a bit of chocolate, but you know, it's it's not life threatening, and you don't need this fear response as a result. Yeah. And I really liked how the whole process of, you know, acknowledging what you're going through, you know, so that psychotherapy is to, you know, actually, because, you know, as part of that, you know, mental therapy, you need to accept the situation before, you know, you can then heal, you know, like
Correct.
yeah. So you got to have that, you know, well, first of all, the awareness, the acknowledgement, and then from that acknowledgement, acceptance, and then you can move through that phase of healing. And that's what I like about that psychotherapy, because you are actually, you know, acknowledging the problem. You're not hiding from it.
No,
You,
it's,
yeah,
I mean, the foundation of EFT is acceptance. Like there's no, that, like if resistance is there, I can guarantee you'll be like insights in the results, not shifts. It'll be just very good insights, which are just very good thoughts,
yeah.
right? But when you're acknowledged through acceptance, and that's why people, like, if I can bring up money again, people are petrified in accepting what they've got and what they haven't got, what they've generated, what they haven't generated, what is clearly a negative balance versus a positive balance, right? It's factual. Just like I'm meant to be this weight and I'm 10 kilograms above that or 20 kilograms above that. And my fat count, I don't know what is this, you know, whatever you guys use as a measurement, like people don't want to accept it. And it's only through acceptance and really being with all the upset and all the frustration, all the failures and, you know, and all the disappointments and regrets. And it's only through that you come through the other way. And that's why you can never start tapping on affirmation like, oh, all this stress is just going to leave me right now. All this stress, no, it's like, no, you can't do that. Because what's fundamentally there is a real disbelief. It's like, you want that to happen, right? But it's like, your system is not going to believe it. I'm clear. Like, if you go, oh, you know, all this weight will just drift off me and I'll be a size 10 straight away. You know, I love myself and I look so good and I can really be with myself, right? And I can speak about that because I do Bikram yoga and I'm in my Bikram yoga shorts and tank top and I'm in front of the mirror and you're dripping with sweat. There's no makeup on you and you're going to be with yourself in 40-degree heat for 90 minutes, right? And it's like, it's really hard to be with, right? And so it really is tapping and any fundamental coaching for people that actually, you know, have the rubber hit the road coaching. I'm not talking about really nice, lovely courses. Really is through acceptance, and then you can do something about it.
And as you said earlier, it's that applying, that regular applying, the consistency is where you start getting the real results, you know, and in terms of unraveling that really hard, you know, stubborn behavior that's, you know, haunted you for so many years. So
yes, I'm sure you come across that a lot, Anthony. It's like, you know, they get an insight or they get the surge of inspiration that really lasts 6 weeks and then they drop off the cliff's edge and you're just like, well, forget about those results. Right?
And that's where that, you know, as you said, you still have a tapping coach that you see on a regular basis.
Yep.
And that's where that coach is really, you know, that's their role essentially, to hold the person accountable and to, you know, and you know, it's black and white. It's, you know, have you done it or you haven't? And, you know, what's holding you back and, you know, how can we help you apply it more regularly and more consistently and in time, working with the coach, it will become a habit. So, I totally agree with that approach, and you know how I can really see how you work really effectively with your clients. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share about tapping? Is there a client success story that you'd like to share? A real tough case that, you know, through this process you're able to liberate them and turn a successful leaf over?
Yeah, I had a client come to me and she experienced some group tapping with me. And then she goes, look, I'm going to tap with you right now because I just can't be with 2020. I think 2020 is taking this away from me, right? And I feel like I've been ripped off 2020 and I don't know why and I can't be with it. And what happened was she had a memory come up between 10 and 13 years old, where she was not treated well by a close person that she knew. And she felt that between the ages of 10 and 13, that those years were stolen from her. And so she had worked through that with different counseling sessions and psychological sessions and stuff like that. However, obviously, as much as the charge had decreased, it wasn't unplugged. And so 2020 happens, and it feels like the rug's been pulled off from under her, and the year's been taken away from her. And what comes up is she had no idea, and it only came up during the tapping session, that of those events that happened between when she was 10 and 13, and she felt that her childhood was stolen away from her between those years. And we saw the association. So we had to go in and really release it. And she felt really freed up, to just be herself, and that was really liberating. I had a few tapping sessions with this particular client, and she loved it. She had never felt so free to be herself.
And so how quickly can, a client realize benefits through a single session? I mean, obviously applied over time, you're going to get more long-term success. But how, through a single session, will you be, some symptomatic relief
Look, for emotional eating, I have managed to shift Cadbury chocolate in one session.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And that's the eating part, like the sweet potato chili chips, right? That's the eating part. But then you need to come back for what's underneath it. Otherwise, that might go away, and then what comes underneath it is like you can't be with being lonely or depressed, or I'm fed up, or I'm bored, or I need belonging, and you can't at the moment. And so what happens is your brain, like I was tapping with another client on chocolate, right? And it was so funny. I saw the brain work like this. I'm tapping with her, and she's like, "Oh, great! I felt really good. My gut feels better now. It was exhausted, but it's because of the gut brain. She's feeling it all in her gut. We've released it all from her gut." And I said, "I need you to think about chocolate right now." Or she had some chocolate there. She goes, "Oh, I really don't. No, I really don't want anything." And then straight away, her brain went to, "Oh, how about baking?" And I'm like, "Whoa, did you just see that?" I'm like, it just doesn't want to be caught. Like, we've unhooked chocolate and it went looking for something else, baking. So the next session I said, "Bake something, we're going to tap on it." And she baked a lemon slice and brought the lemon slice to her side of the tapping appointment. And I said, "Smell the lemon slice. Let's tap on the lemon slice. What do you see? What do you feel?" Da, 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 da. We tapped on it, and then we shifted her baking. So she'll bake when she bakes, not bake so that she can feel like she's being useful, or feel like she's contributing, or feel like this is how I need to organize my household. I need to be doing this. This is my job. Right? So when we shifted from chocolate straight onto baking, right? And so we had to then tap on baking to really completely unhook it.
So you're really clearing the person's mind so that they can think rationally, as opposed to irrational thinking, which is very much driven by that fight or flight, that the amygdala center being aroused. So I can see how that works, because you're now allowing that person's prefrontal cortex to function, that executive function to operate, and you're sending the chi or the energy or the blood flow to that executive
part
center.
Of the brainstem.
Yes,
yep.
exactly. And that's where they can make rational decisions as opposed to emotionally driven decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really liberating to see, and at the same time really quite interesting to see when the brain skipped one thing to another. I'm just like, hang on, that's how come you need to tap with a practitioner, because I saw that jump straight away. It came out of her mouth, but for her, she was really justified about it. She's like, "No, but how about baking?"
It was a second go-to. It was the second fix, not the primary, but the secondary.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, let's catch this little sucker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then ultimately it's getting to that ultimate foundation of causation, and that's what you know. Once you release that, then you pretty much, that person is a lot more freer in
Mm.
terms of those unhealthy habits
Yeah.
that have been covering up that traumatic event, so to speak, or you know,
Yeah.
some experience, or
Yeah.
some emotional time, and you know,
Exactly.
they've developed layers of protection through
Exactly.
eating or just unhealthy. It could be drinking or smoking or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Or even the layers of emotional weight,
Ah, true.
right?
Yeah.
That, I know a few people that've gone to several naturopaths and several doctors and several whatever, and however healthy they eat, however much they track,
Mm.
there's always just a threshold. They get there, but they can't bypass that
Yeah.
threshold, right?
Just stuck.
And it is an emotional threshold,
Yeah.
right? It's an emotional way, and your body will go, nah, your normal, for you, it's 100 kilograms at all times. It's like
Mm.
whatever it is, your brain's going to fire off and go, nah, you're at an unhealthy level at 95 kilograms. I'm going to push you back up to 100 because
Yeah.
that's safe, right? So that threshold will always be there. And so it's the work of, maybe it's medicine that you need, maybe it's something that you need, that you literally combat the physiological um, factors, as
Mm.
well as doing the emotional assistance to bring it down to that level. And then you restart at 95 kilograms going down.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point, because yeah, we refer that as the set point. So a person's set point, and it's the point at
Mm-hmm.
which their body will be it's stubborn in terms of resisting any further weight loss, because it feels, you know, like it needs to protect itself. It's a survival
Yep.
mechanism, and it's
Yep.
inbuilt, and that set point's different for everyone. But you're right, they'll get stuck at a point where they just can't shift anymore,
No.
and you're saying that through this emotional release, they can then move beyond that set point.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
wow.
with help, like people like yourself, Anthony. It's like
Mm.
you need the assistance from the physiological point of view
Hmm.
as well, to
Yes,
combat the physical signals,
yes.
right? As well as then it's like, great. It's almost like going, you need to have emergency savings in your bank account
Hmm.
before you can think about, oh, let's generate my own business. It's like, if you can't keep a roof over your head,
Yeah.
don't think about generating a business. Go get a job just to pay your
Hmm.
rent, right? So the set point is like, go and get the assistance in terms of like, the physiological assistance is like getting the job done,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then when you're not faced and triggered by, I'm going to be homeless or whatever it is, right? Then you can work on, all right, let's build on unhooking the emotional senses,
Yeah.
right? And then together, and probably as a team, you and I can then work to the next level. Let's get this person down to 95 kilos.
That's
And then let's
fantastic.
get it down to 90. But
That's
every part is going to be another new set point that the
yes.
body's going to, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, it's fantastic, and I really love that collaboratory approach to
Mm,
healthcare, because I think, you know, us working together as a whole really gives the client far better outcomes than they could achieve with a single practitioner,
yeah.
because yeah, it's attacking it from different angles and really giving you that accelerated journey towards your health goal.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah,
Mm,
I really have enjoyed the discussion with you today,
me
Fay.
too.
How can listeners, viewers, best get in touch with you?
Well, I'm very active on my Facebook page,
Hmm.
and it's called Living Well with Fay, all
Yep.
one word. So you can find me there, or just type Fay Chan and I'll probably turn up.
Okay.
My Instagram handle is the same one. So Living Well with Fay.
Living Well with Fay, fantastic,
Yeah.
and I'll include those tags where I post this, so yeah, viewers can just go straight down to the show notes and they'll find a direct connection with your Facebook page, and they can message you. And yeah, really,
Yes.
yeah, just like to thank you for sharing all your wisdom, your experience with the listeners today. For listeners, if you like the episode, please share it with others that could benefit. You know, anyone else you know that's experiencing emotional eating, anxiety, or anything associated with that, or just not feeling themselves, feeling a bit isolated and down, then this is a great adjunct to whoever else they're seeing to support them. So so please share it with them, like the episode, and stay tuned for more insightful episodes of Me and My Health Up. And thanks again, Faye. Really appreciated your time and sharing all your knowledge with us.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you.